Who is she? I can't lie, I am feeling this purple and I'm so excited to see how it fades out. Next color on my color hair journey. I literally said that this pregnancy series is going to be like the most documentation of my colored hair. Okay. Sorry for the break. Got a lot going on in my life, but we're back. Month 4. I'm cool. I have a phone stand now. It has a beautiful light. So I also have a speaker, but I have to charge my phone, which I can do on my ring light. So, okay. Anyhow, we're back. Blooming within education. I'm feeling so motivated now that I have this ring light and my speaker. But anyhow, so we're on to week 13. We are into month 4. In the second trimester, things start to get easier. Your body is starting to settle down now in the very first few weeks, especially that first month. From all of these hormones, it's very much used to everything that's going on by now, typically. And there isn't a need for such a surge of hormones because at this point, the hormones that are surging are kind of really just for maturity wise. Majority of babies' necessities to be a human is there. Baby is the size of a lemon. Lemon. And this is something as well where this is the stage where genetics really start to take over. Since I had said not so many surges of hormones are necessary and the majority of your baby is there. So really what's being put in the second trimester is finishing up, all of the little tiny details inside, but also really starting to let genetics take a role on how baby looks outside, how baby's going to technically finish developing. And this is actually when genetics will start to play a role for things like Down syndrome and, other trisomy disorders and many other, genetic disorders that you can get. This is the time that it's actually developing, is the second trimester, which is why people tend to find out about these things in the second trimester. Is not only the fact that baby's getting bigger, so now these organs are becoming more noticeable, these features are becoming more noticeable, the size of baby arm, all of these things, but also genetics have a huge play in this next trimester, which I just love. I think it's the coolest thing. It's one of the one things of pregnancy I actually had no clue until I started to do the research regarding this. And, I know my basics around pregnancy. I know everything that should be like that. But even my educator course that I have to take does not discuss about that, which I just love. And with that being said, don't compare your size, your baby size, any of those things to other people. Remember genetics are taking a huge role at this part. Size of your belly, size of baby, what's going on. You only have so much control. And you really don't have any control, if I'm being quite honest. But I guess so much control meaning, marry or get with someone that you want to have a baby with and has good genetic codes. But definitely don't compare yourself to other people. And I think this is a great start in parenthood where you don't get in the habit of doing that and really take note that everybody is absolutely unique in parenthood. Their children are unique. Every one of your children are different, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's one of the hardest things to deal with. So start now, you know what I mean? But speaking of these details and maturity and baby, next thing we're going through is arms and limbs are getting longer and we're making muscles. They're moving enough recently that you're probably starting to seriously feel flutters. And definitely like maybe even actual kicks where you literally feel someone on the inside of you push on the outside of you. But because of all this movement, there's a lot of muscle tone, and sometimes that can lead to a little phlegm in the mouth action, which is so cool. But just in ultrasounds in general, that's, all this muscle movement is what's leading to them, sticking their hand out, sticking their foot at you, putting this out, This is what starts that. Those little tiny kicks we had talked about a month ago. It's leading up to that right now. Another big thing that's happening this month or this week is the umbilical cord was your intestine for a while. And I talked about that when the umbilical cord was developing, that it's not just a reproductive system, but it's also your total exit system. You know, intestines, colon, all of that is through that. It's where you get the goods and you exit the goods at the most core level when babies are this young in pregnancy. Now that's actually moving out of specifically the intestines. They aren't divided yet, but the intestines as a whole, small and large, are actually the function of the intestines, is now moving out of the umbilical cord and making its way to baby, and now going to be, you know, kind of put where it should be and develop and mature that way. And like I had said, it's actually the whole intestine, including the colon at the end. But that whole, you know, this is what I eat and now I secrete system outside of the stomach is now implanted. So now baby can poop, which, as you know, and decrete waste, which is huge being a human. I mean, you will literally die if you can't pee, poop, eat, or breathe. So huge part, which I just think, again, so cool that it literally leaves the cord and goes into your baby. It's one of those things that's not immediately developed inside of the baby and moves its way down, and like, so sweet. Another minute detail that's going to be going on right now is vocal cords. They're actually developing now officially in the throat. You know, I had said the last 2 months, especially head, face, you know, throat, chest, all of those things were big, you know, being made at this point. So again, baby can ingest, baby can breathe. So vocal cords are this week, which I think is so cool. And they don't really use them much in the womb, and they actually take a long time to fully develop, if you will. But they do this so they're so strong to withstand newborn crying, actually. Fun fact. Now, you've definitely probably noticed a huge difference in your body. Pretty much anyone by the second trimester, they've noticed something, you know. Something's different. Doesn't matter how big or small, something's different. But placenta is 2 pounds, okay, people? 2 pounds. That's not including your baby. So give yourself a little break here. Placenta's huge, giving baby all of its needs, and getting bigger now because baby is going to start learning to ingest on its own, which is a huge part with the placenta and pushing all those nutrients to it, let alone that's your baby's core and how they develop everything. So we love a good belly. We want that to be nice and full of placenta and baby and cushiony storage for mom. Again, don't compare yourself. My son was at a friend's, and I thought he just opened the door. It was my fucking cat. Excuse my swearing. Anywho, another thing that can happen a lot is vaginal discharge. Especially, I mean, this can happen, honestly, throughout your pregnancy. Intensely, it's caused because of the extra estrogen going on in your body. And this extra estrogen is also making you horny or not horny. It can do one or the other when you have too much of that. Kind of depends on what's going on with progesterone. But the vaginal discharge is very common, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're moist during sex. It just means that you have that vaginal discharge. Extremely normal. As long as it's milky, there's no like yellow or green or brown color to it. And there's an odor, but it's a normal vaginal odor. There's nothing strong that if you whiff, you're like, oh, that's a little funky. You don't want that. You don't want that anyways in your vagina. But there is a variety of vaginal smells and odors. You know, post-sex, pre-sex, horny, masturbating, just throughout your cycle, to be quite honest with you, depending on what you eat. There's a lot of things at play here. And I think people should start to understand the smell. There's a huge difference between something that is normal vaginal smell and something that is funky. And vaginal smell, when you get a whiff of it, should never make you go, ooh. You know, like, it doesn't mean you have to enjoy it. You know, some of us do, some of us don't. It's just you really need to get to know your vagina and the smells and understand that there are smells. But if you smell it and it makes you literally sort of woozy, it's probably not good. Think of an infection. If you can think of how an infection smells, or a zit that was very large, or a cyst or something that you've had on your finger, once that pops, it has that kind of odor that makes you go, ooh. And some of them are really bad and others aren't so bad, but you're like, yeah, that's infected. Well, that's similar to the vagina with what is going on in your body. Obviously, the smell is a tad bit different, and if it's like an infection, you need to go to the ER. But things like fishy smells is a vagina has a similar to fish smell due to pH. And they share that similarly. And depending on which pH is at, is what's going to go on smell wise. And again, that can change for so many reasons, but actual infection and actual yucky will have a twang to it. Tang, I don't know what to call it. It just literally, you're like, whoa, something ain't right there. And if you're not familiar enough with your vagina to this point, you should be. And you really should take into consideration, like, it's not actually gross to understand your vaginal smells, knowing how important it is. Like, you have something that's in you and not out of you, in you, that you have to maintain a balance, or it will literally mess you up entirely, especially during pregnancy. And you don't want to have to deal with any of those infections or any of those issues in your vagina while you're pregnant. So just take the 2 seconds to know it. And of course, it can be walking because you're pregnant and all of these hormones. But again, just kind of getting an idea of what smells normal and what doesn't. But it's nothing intense, ever. But with the vaginal discharge, there is a theory that the reason why this happens outside of the extra estrogen is what they think, I guess you could say, evolved, is that we naturally started to do this so that we could protect our birth canal from the very beginning at pregnancy, and really starting to develop the birth canal in order to be able to withstand labor, delivery, all the trauma that it goes through anyways throughout pregnancy and childbirth, and then being able to have the elasticity to go back to itself after. They say that discharge has a huge component into this. And yeah, I just think that's also kind of cool, and I would agree with that theory. But that's really all that's going on in week 14. So if you have any questions, please comment below, and I'll gladly answer them. And we'll get back with my hair.